Welcome to Big Blend Radio with your hosts, Lisa and Nancy, editors of BigBlendMagazine.com.
Welcome, everybody. Today's episode shines a spotlight on the Made in LA anthology series of books. It's created by an indie author cooperative based in, yes, Los Angeles. And we're thrilled to have Cody Sisco join us. He's the co-founder of the co-op. And we also have Aryn Youngless joining us, who has got her stories in two of the anthologies, one that's out, the second one, and the third one that is coming out. And we'll talk all about that. But I do want to encourage you to go to their website. It's madeinlawriters.com. So welcome, Cody. How are you doing?
Oh, it's an interesting day. Thanks for having me on.
Well, that's always a good way to start a conversation. Okay. We're going to have to dig deeper into that. Hey, Aryn, how are you doing?
I'm fantastic. How are you guys?
Doing good. Doing good. It's funny because, you know, it's like we've been tweeting for how many years, and it all started when Nancy and I used to live out here in 29 Palms outside Joshua Tree, and that's where we are today. Traveling to cover Joshua Tree in this region. So it's kind of interesting because that's where we were when we connected with you. Yeah, a long time ago.
It's full circle.
I know.
Meant to be.
Yeah, and you weren't here yet. You weren't in California yet. You were in the Midwest,
I was
right?
not.
Yeah.
I was in Ohio back then.
Freezing.
Yeah, a long time ago. I know. Yes, no longer though. Thank God.
She's like, yay, I'm in the sunshine land. So what is living in L.A. like for you, especially now that you're writing in an L.A. anthology?
You know, it's nothing that I ever thought would happen. I don't think I could have anticipated this part of my life. Back when we first started talking, I can't even remember what I was writing, but I guarantee that there were vampires involved.
And werewolves?
Not something I would ever. Yeah, well, you know, still werewolves still come up, but you know, not vampires. But no, it's fantastic. When I moved here, I also didn't have any expectations, and I kind of fell in love with the city. It was a love at first sight for me, and so when everything happened with the anthology, I actually saw the booth at the LA Time Festival of Books way before I knew who they were, and stopped by, and then here we are now. So
right on.
Yeah.
Cody, how did this whole, kind of cooperative, start? Because I know, the indie world, whether it's in music and even in art, writing, everybody, I think even with what we do as independent publishers, we've got to stick together against the man.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that need to kind of band together and support one another is exactly how it started. There was a Indie Author Day event at a local library here in Los Angeles, and I met a few other authors who had one or two books out, and we started talking and realized that it'd be great if we could do something together. And I kind of jumped into it a little bit quickly and booked a space at the LA Times Festival of Books for the following year. And so we, came together, we were there, we needed a name to put on our banner. And one of the co-founders, Allison Rose, suggested Made in LA. And people kept coming up to us during the festival saying, oh, are these stories all set in Los Angeles? Because we each had our own individual books. And, we kind of had to say, no, not really. But that seeded the idea for the following year. And the following year, we brought out volume 1 of Made in LA and sold out all our books pretty quickly. And that kind of just got the ball rolling. And we've done it ever since. This will be the third anthology coming out this year.
Right on. So the first one, Made in LA, was volume 1 of stories rooted in the City of Angels. So that was 2018, 2019. I was Chasing the Elusive Dream, and Aryn, that's where your inner werewolf comes out.
Yes. She is there waiting.
Dog. Yeah, she does.
I do, but the dog is much more recent than the werewolf.
Okay. This is interesting because I know, we connected on plant-based living, right? And I'm going, Aryn, you're, your werewolf, smelling blood of different animals and, different things. I mean, the smelling thing of the blood.
Yeah.
There's where is this coming
One of the
from?
other authors brings that up all the time, how I'm vegan and I'm plant-based. But, the heart wants what the heart wants when it writes.
When she's writing, I was like, oh my gosh, she's kicking it. She's kicking it. And Cody, you've been haunted by the face.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I have to say that the writing, yours included, both of you, the writing in the anthology is so fast-paced. It's like, and it keeps you going, and especially short stories. I think short stories have got to be the hardest to write because you have to do it fast, get it in there, keep people entertained, but it is very fast-paced. And I wonder if it kind of goes with LA traffic.
I'm glad to hear that. I think, we're all a bit distracted these days with our devices, and short stories kind of can fill the gap in those small periods of time between, checking our phones for our notifications. I think it's kind of suited for this era.
It is. It's interesting, even with what we do in magazine-wise. We're having to go shorter, right, Nancy? You're always telling everybody, cut it down.
Get to the point. People seem to be, we're busy and there's so many things out there to do that people are, I noticed this from researching the magazine that we do, that when you get past a few paragraphs, or your paragraphs especially are too long, people don't read the whole paragraph. They read like 3 sentences and they move on to the next.
Wow.
Yeah, one of the things we're doing with this anthology is it's all sort of, working contemporaneous writers. We're not publishing people from 20, 30, 50 years ago. It's all stories that have been written, very recently, in some cases just a few months ago. And so I think that's one of the things I'm really proud of, is this kind of like really current vibe that we have going on.
It's fresh. Now, the editing process and all of that, I'm very interested in it because I'm thinking back to when we even started our podcast, 12 years ago? I don't know how old we are or young we are anymore. But it was back when, it was when, you could publish, on Amazon, and it was at the beginning of Creative Space and all of that, and it was when it wasn't vanity press anymore, and some of the stuff that was self-published, you really just wanted to throw out the window. It's like that book is going, away. So because the editing process somehow just got ignored. So now reading the anthology, you guys definitely don't have that problem. But what is your editing process? Is it something that you all work together on, or do you have a specific editor?
We have, so it's definitely a process. We're right in the finishing touches of it now, so it's all fresh in my mind. We start with the submission process. So this year we had about 60 submissions of stories, and all of us, the 4 editors for this anthology, myself, Gaby Lorino, Allison Rose, and Sarah Chisholm, we read each story and then went through a process to figure out, okay, which ones are in and which ones are out. And we all weighed in on that. Once we had selected the stories, then typically I manage the more developmental editing, where if there are a few stories that need some work on the arc or on the characters, I'll give the feedback to the writers, and they'll then either revise or resubmit. That's typically maybe like a quarter of the accepted stories go through that process. A lot of them are really more ready to go. And in that case, we do a round of internal copy edits, followed by sending the entire manuscript to a freelance copy editor. Those come back. We do a final proof. We put it into layout, and then it's ready to go.
Right on. And it goes into every outlet, Amazon, all of those places. What about selling in LA? Are you in bookshops and places that people can get can we get it on Venice Beach? I want to go to Venice Beach. As soon as I started reading this, I'm like, I need to go to Venice Beach. I miss it.
Yeah, I mean, that's, like the fun part about LA is that there are so many small independent bookstores that are still thriving. And so that's great. There is a small bookstore in Venice. Aryn, I think you might know better.
Small World Books. I was just there, and yes, it is on the shelf. When you first walk in on your right.
Oh, that's great.
Very cool.
Very cool. I like to hear that.
There's a few other places that I guess deserve a shout out. Skylight Books, Last Bookstore, Stories Books and Cafe are all places that carry the anthology and have hosted us to do readings and discussions.
That's really cool to hear because, again, as we travel the country, we're always going, okay, is there a local bookshop? A lot of times they're ousted out because of, corporate America. So it's really, I think, especially being able to have events in bookshops. And I saw you do a few of them, Aryn. So what's that like, as a writer going to these events? Because sometimes we like to just stay in our office and tell everybody to leave us alone.
Right. Right. It's the complete opposite side of the writing process. You are not alone. There are people staring at you. Yes. Well, when you're not used to, oh, goodness, the first time you said you're going to have to read, I was like, why?
Yeah.
Because, you're not used to that. I read in my bedroom, which is not big, and I walk around in circles. But, my audience is a cat and a dog. But it's exciting. It's exciting to be there. It's exciting to talk to people who are interested in the stories. It's exciting because the anthology isn't one genre, it's multiple genres. So it's interesting to see the different authors speak and the audience responding to them and why are they there. Because it could be somebody who only reads contemporary fiction, but now they've heard about all the speculative fiction and horror or whatever is in it. And it's just a really fun experience to meet people from all over, especially at the Last Bookstore.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say there was a diverse crowd.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that's the cool thing about, the anthology too. It's like somebody making a really cool mixtape for you. I don't know if people do that anymore, but I still think they're cool. To be able to, it exposes your mind into something else. I know the third one is The Art of Transformation. That's super cool. Tell us a little bit about what to expect in that, Cody.
Yeah, so I was just looking back through all of the stories and picked up on a theme which was there in the beginning, but now it just crystallized. A lot of these stories deal with either the aftermath or the dread around death. So it's a fairly dark anthology, I would have to say, and yeah, I'm still trying to figure out how to talk about that.
Your best friend or something.
A lot of them feel, including Aryn's, feel almost apocalyptic, where there's a transformation happening to a person or a community, and everyone's kind of dealing with what that means and how they go about their lives.
I kind of feel like the country feels that way a little bit now, We've been going through a lot of change. People are angry. People are sick. We've got the virus, the beer virus floating around out there. And so all these things are happening. And, it's not just this country. Obviously, it's around the world. It's a global shift. And so there is that kind of apocalyptic feeling that what's going to happen? Where are we headed? Climate change, all of that. Where are we going? And I think you do want to read those kind of things because you can't ignore the fact that our glaciers could take us out.
Yeah. And life goes on, before, during, and after the apocalypse until the last blade of grass is gone. Life continues, and so some of what I think people will find in these stories is how to continue, how to go on, how do you transform what could be a very, very negative experience into something that sustains us.
Or maybe it's happened before, and we just don't realize it, and that's why that's what deja vu is all about.
Oh, here she goes.
Yeah, we're probably the 50th kind of civilizations around the world that have ended and started again. Ooh.
I love that idea. And so I'm looking at the table of contents right now, and the first story by Noriko Nakata is titled Infamy, and it's about a teenage Japanese girl who is living in LA around before the beginning of World War II, when the news comes that Pearl Harbor has just been bombed. And so the story deals with the immediate aftermath of her learning that news and how attitudes towards Japanese Americans in LA kind of change overnight, and it becomes a really kind of threatening experience.
Wow, that's really deep. I mean, and it happened. You look at, Manzanar is not that far from you.
Right.
All these camps and I mean, this kind of when you think of apocalypse, right, and death and mass destruction, you look in history, it's been there over and over again. So Nancy, you're right about the recycled deja vu thing. It's just not the way we want to see it.
Well, there's, I've got a weird mind. Sometimes, especially out here in the desert, I look at the roadrunners and I look at the lizards and I'm like, okay, one day that lizard's going to be a roadrunner and eat another lizard. Isn't that weird?
Well, they are dinosaurs.
Well, yeah. I mean, when you look at a roadrunner, they look part lizard. Or as birds do, if it wasn't for the feathers. It's like a big lizard.
No, I get that.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, it's all about our sense of time. Yeah, we put things into a calendar even, and nature just, no, I'm going to do what I want.
Yes. I think it's the whole, you never anticipate it will happen to you or in your lifetime. It's something you read about in history books. It's something that happened once upon a time, or it's something you're forcibly made to read about in high school or college or whatever. But it's you never anticipate you're going to be the one in the eye of the storm watching it all swirl around you.
And it does happen, look at wildfires and earthquakes and, LA goes through a lot of that. Yet here's this magical city of angels, but it does go through drama, riots. It's had its fair share, and it's part of life, like you were saying. So I think this is exciting. But when you look at right now, here we are in spring, and the coronavirus is canceling events across the country. And I think about the topic of, the art of transformation. It kind of goes with it, doesn't it, Cody, in a weird way?
I mean, this is top of mind. Yeah, this is top of mind for me right now. We just got an email from the LA Times Festival of Books organizers who announced that the festival, which usually happens in mid-April, is being postponed until October. And we usually bring out the anthology, and that's our kind of debut for each issue. So we're going to have to transform our book launch plan and how we've always been so focused on kind of community, our community of writers and our community of readers as the Made in LA collective. And so now we have to think, well, how does this work in this kind of new environment where everyone's trying to socially distance themselves from potentially a public health threat? And we're just at the very start of figuring out kind of what our new plan is.
Well, you could do it all online. You could just have a great big book fair online, and you could see each other if you use, the right softwares and programs. So you could just, maybe we're all just going to end up living in a computer box with our computers and never going outside, but you see everybody online.
We're going to all be in our own bubble.
Yeah, that's really interesting because last week I just got back on Saturday from the AWP conference, the Association of Writers and Writing Programs conference, which was almost canceled but ended up going ahead, and about half of the estimated more than 10,000 attendees didn't show, and a bunch of panels got canceled, and a lot of publishers didn't show up. But there were people there, some of whom were, washing their hands and using hand sanitizer. Others were hugging it out. And so what's been really fascinating is to see the very wide differences in behavior in terms of how people are adapting and transforming related to this threat.
Just drink wine.
Right? That makes everything better.
Yeah.
It does. you whine in your bubble. Well, you can't. You know that there's that whole thing. I mean, even in terrorism, do you hide? Or do you stand up? I think you have to have like a good, healthy precaution. But there's also the point of like you can't live in your shower because hey, we're running out of water too, everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, looking back over the last few years, I think every individual or community has felt under threat by something egregious. And so, again, how do we learn to live in the shadow of that?
Yeah, this is an interesting time. So, everyone, you got to keep up with them at madeinlawriters.com. So you can follow. You're on Twitter, Facebook, and all that good too, right, for everyone to follow?
Yeah, Made in LA has an account on Twitter and Instagram, and then all of our contributors are also, sort of talking up the anthology and sharing insights into the process. So we'll make those available too, so you can follow all of those fantastic writers, and you can see as their careers develop when they have a new story or a new book out, and get in on their careers at the very earliest stages.
I love that. Doesn't it help writers at getting started to be published in an anthology, Cody? Doesn't it kind of give them a step up into their career?
Yeah, it's interesting. Writers always reference kind of where their stories have been published, and that's really important because when an editor is looking at submissions, if they have that information available, then they know that someone else was willing to take a chance on that writer. As indie authors, I think we're very aware that there are a lot of gatekeepers in the industry. And so one of the things I like to do is make sure that all of the writers all the contributors in the anthology feel like they have a group of people who have their back. They are getting exposure, and they're learning kind of how to grow as a writer in their careers. That's really important to me.
And from that,
you guys are very supportive.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, Aryn. So you getting started in this with the anthology series. I know you have to go read in public, have wine with that or after that. But what's it like on that level of the publishing side and that whole other process for you?
It's actually been wonderful because I've submitted to places before. I've had positive reactions. I've had horrible, terribly bad negative reactions. Talking to people, but when meeting the Made in LA team, everybody's just supportive, and there's no weird hierarchy, if that makes sense. It's not like, oh, I'm the new kid, so I get to sit in the corner. It's everybody just, I know it sounds weird, but I've had that experience where you come in, you're like, oh, you're new, okay, go over here, and it wasn't like that. It was,
that's like
here's
cool.
our table, talk to people, and that's what we did, and it makes me want to support the anthology, even if I'm not in it. It makes me want to support their tweets and support what they're working on because I feel I get the same back.
Well, anytime you can group together to push an art form forward, it's a plus for everybody.
Yeah.
Instead of that age-old competition thing that sometimes can step in. Like I used to work within this art group of painters, and sometimes it was like I felt really bad for someone who just joined because they had to go through a lot before people would welcome their paintings in, and I always felt like, hey, wait a minute, let's just put all the paintings together and let the public decide. I think that's how the writing and that's how art form should be, because everybody's going to like something a little bit different.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, now we always like to play music for our guests, and today's song is "Lost in L.A." and it's from our friend Nikki Chris, and she comes to L.A. every year for the Grammys. And so I'm going to play this for her and for you guys.
Ooh, what happens to her when she gets here?
I know, but Lost in L.A. So what I wanted to do, because that's the song title, is I want to know from each of you if you could get lost with someone, anyone, fictional, a werewolf, I don't care, I don't care. you're going to get lost. You're going to get in your car. Now, first off, you can have whatever, transportation you want. Okay, so you're going to get in there, and you're going to take someone somewhere with you. Okay, it could be James Corden. You can sing, but you're going to go somewhere in LA and get lost, right? But you have an intention of going somewhere, right? So who would you not mind getting lost with? So let's start with you, Cody. We want to know what the car is. Road trip music is good too, okay? Who are you getting lost with in LA?
So this might not be a very original suggestion, but it's been on my mind lately because I've been reading a book of writers reacting to her writing from decades ago. But it would be Joan Didion, and we would be in her muscle car, a bright yellow, cruising around the streets, and she'd be saying, oh, that used to be here, but it's not there anymore, and that used to be here, but it's not there anymore. And I'd be kind of bored, but then every once in a while she would just have this gem of a slicing observation, and I would treasure it.
Right on. And what music would you be playing?
Oh, wow. I feel like there's a whole playlist that could be developed from that. I think we would start with The Doors.
Yeah. Oh, right on. You got to, right?
Absolutely.
You got to start with The Doors. Now, if you were going to pick somewhere to take her, where would you go?
I've never been to Palos Verdes. It's so close. It's like so scenic. I've seen pictures tons of the time, and I've just never hung out there. I know that she lived there for a little bit, so I would be like, show me the hidden treasures of this little pocket of the county.
Very cool. This is cool. Now, what about you, Aryn? Where are you going? I want to know the mobile.
I don't know how to answer that. I think I would pick Charles Bukowski. He would probably tell me the entire time to quit writing, but it would be worth it. That's his epitaph. It says give up. But I still love him because, I don't know, I started reading Bukowski when I was a teenager, and he's my go-to lift me up as a writer. And I would probably have to take a bus because I was with him, and then we would just go downtown.
Very
Hang
cool.
out
So now music.
Yep. Angel Flight.
How are you going to do music on the bus that you can share? You take a boombox?
Well, in my neighborhood, they ignore all those signs that say don't play music loud. So I would probably listen to whoever had their music the loudest.
That's good.
That would be Lisa.
Yes. Well, you've got loud music is important.
Yes, it is.
Very cool. Very cool. Last question for you, Aryn, is I know you teach yoga, and I've always laughed because I also know she likes punk rock and all that. So I'm like, how do that balance, right? Does yoga help you in the creative process? Does it help you have a clearer mind?
Yes. There are days when I overthink, and having that ability to meditate and breathe myself down and get out of my mind, stop being the critic that I assume everyone's going to be, that stops me from writing at all. And then, yoga is just a big part of my existence. As punk rock is, it's a weird juxtaposition, but I feel that they're both revolutionary, if you will. The idea of being quiet and the idea of just speaking your mind. They both talk of that. So it kind of goes hand in hand. And then it is. It is. Well, you have to have that.
Yeah,
if it was all meditation all the time, I would be a monk. So I don't want that.
Only if they let you have wine. I'm sorry, we published our magazine today. I need wine. It's been a process. It's like every time a magazine's, published, there's like this birth. You feel like you went through it, the birthing thing, and then you forget all about it. Once it's done, it's like, what was in there? You can't remember all the sweat and tears and blood. You just like, oh, it's done now. Like, on to the next one, It's like, So that's why you need wine. But, Thank you both for joining us. Very excited to follow what's happening for the next anthologies. Whenever this one comes out for your 2021, coronavirus or not, maybe we should be having beer instead of wine. I don't know.
Maybe.
Maybe we should just switch it up and have tequila and knock everybody out. you know.
Uh-oh.
That's what we need to do. I do want to give a shout out to our awesome sponsors, the National Parks Arts Foundation. They are so awesome. We interview their artists the first Friday, so you can keep up with us at bigblendradio.com for that and all our other episodes. But they put artists, musicians, poets, painters, dancers, you name it. If you're in the arts, you may want to apply to be an artist in residence. You get to stay in a national park for an entire month if you're selected,
cool.
right? And
Wow.
if you submit and apply and you don't make it the first time, try again, because it just is the matter of the process, right? So you can stay in places like Gettysburg, which is a national, battlefield, right, a military park. You could stay on an island in the Dry Tortugas National Park. Think about it, your own private beach island for a month. You have to take someone with
Sounds
you for
amazing.
that one, by the way. So you have to have two with you. Hawaii Volcanoes National Park.
Oh, I love that.
Haleakala. I'm just saying. And the Volcanoes National Park, you have your own, they call it the Art House. It's a 6-bedroom house overlooking the ocean with its own recording studio and dance floor. I'm like,
oh, wow.
So everyone check it out, nationalparksartsfoundation.org. So writers, definitely writers are more than welcome. They also have special programs for veterans, so check that out too. The best thing to do is to sign up for their newsletter and follow them on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, because they have new opportunities all the time. And sometimes it's like, hey, anybody want to go to Hawaii? You need to apply right now because it's the way the grant process works. So again, nationalparksartsfoundation.org. But here it is, everybody, Lost in L.A. by Nikki Chris. Keep up with her at nikkichris.com. Thanks, Cody. Thanks, Aryn.
Thank you.
Thank you.